Hello, welcome to another episode of Northwest Backyard Barbecue. Today we're going to be making corned beef. So without further ado, let's get to it. So corned beef is generally made with a brisket. You can use any kind of cut of meat you want, any kind of beef, but brisket is generally going to be the best cut of meat to use. So when you use a brisket, the best way to do that is going to be to separate the point from the flat. When you use both those cuts, if you're going to use both those cuts, what I like to do is make corned beef out of the flat, and I like to make pastrami out of the point. Now, the pastrami is going to have an extra step when you get done brining the corned beef, which you're going to smoke it for a little while, and then at that point you can do a lot of different things. You can boil it, you can just cut it right out of the smoker. So there's some different things you can do with that pastrami, but today we're going to show you how to make a corned beef, and you do the same thing for pastrami, other than you would after the brine, you would do that extra step of smoking the meat. So let's get to it, and let me show you exactly what's in the corned beef brine. So first of all, what we have here is we're going to have salt. This salt here, for the size of flat we're going to use today, which is going to be about 5.4 pounds, which came from a 14-pound Packer brisket. Once we separated the flat and the point, took all the fat away, we had about 9 pounds between the two pieces of meat, and the flat portion is going to be about 5.4 pounds. So with that poundage, what we're going to want to do is add about 10.8 ounces, 11 ounces of kosher salt. And then we're going to have brown sugar here. Now this is going to be a dark brown sugar. This is going to be about 1 1/3 cups of dark brown sugar. Then we're going to have some pickling spice. They also call it corned beef spice as well, but generally it's a pickling spice. That's going to be about 7 tablespoons of pickling spice. And then we're going to have some garlic. And the garlic here for this size meat is going to be about 6 cloves of garlic. And then this here is going to be the pink curing salt. Now this is Prague powder number 1. Basically what this is something like this here. Pink curing salt number 1, premium Prague powder. All this really is about probably can't see it on here, but it's 6.25% of sodium nitrite, and then the rest of it is basically table salt. So all of these measurements do vary depending on the size of meat that you have. There are some calculators online, which I'll put a link in the description of some places where you can find some calculators to make sure you have enough, because this part here, you don't want to put too much, you don't want to put too little. This is probably the most important thing to get correct. So I'll put that calculator in there so you know exactly what you need to put based on the size of meat that you have. So we're going to go ahead and get our bucket of water here. So this is about 1 1/3 gallons of water. We're going to take the salt, put the salt in there, the kosher salt. I'm going to take the brown sugar, put that in there. We got the pickling spice, got the garlic, and then we have the Prague powder number 1. Gonna mix that up good. And all you're trying to do here is dissolve the brown sugar and the salt. Pretty much everything except for, you're obviously not going to dissolve the big chunks of the pickling spice. Just give it a good mix. And what this is a wet cure. So this is going to sit in the refrigerator. Again, depending on the size of the meat and the thickness of the meat, is going to depend on how long this sits in the refrigerator. Okay, so I think we got that a good mix there. So now we're going to move this out of the way. We're going to get the meat over here and put that in. And let me get that meat and I'll be right back with you. Got my flat here that I'd already separated from the point. I've trimmed it up really nice. You don't want to have a lot of fat when you're doing a corned beef, because when you cook that corned beef, you're going to boil it, or what I like to do is put it in a pressure cooker. It cooks it faster, and I don't really want to sit and babysit it for hours on the stove. So the pressure cooker for me works best. But when you have a lot of fat on there, it gets kind of mushy, and it's really not a good taste when you make your sandwiches. So you want to make sure you kind of cleared most of that fat off, which I've done. Now, when you make the pastrami, if you're doing that step, which I'm going to do with the point, on that you're going to want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of fat, just because when you smoke it, that fat kind of a little bit renders down, but also it just makes it a little bit more succulent when you make your sandwiches, cut your meat, that type of thing. So we did leave about 1/8 of an inch of fat cap on the point, and we're going to be brining that as well. We're going to be making sandwiches out of that too, but this process again is exactly the same as we're doing with this corned beef. Other than that extra step where you're going to go ahead and smoke the pastrami. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the bucket now. And I've got the briner bucket. If you don't have one of these, it's something that you really should look into getting. It's got little notches in there. And you've got a little plate here that you push down, turn, push down, and then you turn it so it locks in place, but it pushes the meat down so you don't have to worry about it floating to the top, because you do want to make sure the meat is completely submerged for the entire time that you're brining it. And again, it does depend on the thickness of the meat as to how long you brine that for. This one here is about 2 inches thick, so we're going to brine it for about 6 days. Now the pastrami is about 2.5 inches thick, so we're going to add a couple days of that. So that one will actually brine in the same type of a brine for about 8 days. So once that's done, then you're going to take it out, and you're going to go ahead and, like I said, this one here, you're going to either pressure cook or boil until it's done. If you're going to boil it, it's going to take you probably 2 to 3, probably 3 hours or so. Pressure cooker though, which is the way that I generally do it, it takes about 1.5 hours to do it in the pressure cooker, and that tends to work out about perfect every single time. So there you have it. That is how you make a corned beef brine, and look for my next video where I'll be making some homemade pastrami sandwiches out of this exact corned beef here. So thanks again for joining us today on Northwest Backyard Barbecue. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you can get updated on all the new recipes that we put online. And again, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.